Does anyone have any questions for this witness? Please approach the podium.
Neil Perry Scherer, or Trey Griner, representing Precast Company. I have a question for you now. I'm really trying to understand, and can you clarify for me what this subdivision is for? Is it for 2 lots or 3 lots?
The subdivision is for 2 lots. The site plan approval, site plan application governs, and I believe that what happened on the subdivision plan is that as a courtesy to the township, the roadway was carved out as a separate lot because, and you've heard the township engineer say, they would not accept a public road on this location. The application is for a 2-lot subdivision.
But then why are you saying that there's 3 lots?
I'm not saying there's 3 lots, ma'am.
The private street is going to be part of which lot?
Part of the primary lot, the larger one.
Which one is that?
The one owned by the applicant.
Well, this lot 6 right now is what's owned by the applicant, correct?
Mr. Smith, which lot numbers are we?
Well, let's just look at the plans.
Lot 6 is the lot where the plant is being proposed.
I just think we all need to understand if we're talking about 3 lots or 2 lots. Because when you were speaking, you were describing 3 lots.
This is lot 6, again, as I mentioned, is the lot where the asphalt plant is being proposed. And lot 5, I'm sorry, lot 6.07 rather, is a second lot. And then we have a private street, which provides access to those lots.
But the private street is located on lot 6 or lot 6.07?
It is a private street.
It has to be located on one or the other.
It's going to be a private right-of-way.
But right now, it's got to be on one or the other. You're doing a subdivision and you're going to put that private street. Is it going to be on both? It's going to be partially on lot 6.
It's not going to be part of either lot.
Did you notice the public when you sent the notice on this application?
I didn't send a notice.
Well, does the notice, I'll ask the attorneys, does the notice refer to a separate lot?
Just a minute. We don't really have to answer. The notice was sent to many property owners. It's in the board's office, and I don't think at this stage, when you're cross-examining the witness, we have to tell you what the notice is. That was your responsibility. If you had a question to look at it, you had plenty of time.
I actually understood. I thought that you had 2 lots. And I thought the private street was part of either partially in one lot and partially in the other. I didn't realize you had a 3rd lot.
If you have questions, you can ask them.
That's the question. So the question is the private street in lot 6 or 6.07? Plan. But as a planner, you are giving testimony as to the basis and the reasons, the planning reasons pursuant to the LUL in section 35, why they should grant you a variance. Site and layout plan?
The site layout plan.
For the record, it's sheet 3.
Okay, thank you. On sheet 3, show remaining lot 6, proposed lot 607, and shows a private street right-of-way. This is for a 2-lot subdivision. The status of the private street right-of-way, you've heard the township engineer discuss that they would reject that as a public street. So therefore, this has been designated off on the site plan as a courtesy to the township to show them what the private right-of-way would look like. This may very well be an easement. It may very well be part of lot 6. at some point in the future. But at this point, I believe it's part of lot 6.
But there's a possibility that it isn't, and I don't believe, I am not aware that that was in the notice that was going to just, for the record, raise that question on the mix. And it should, to me, it looks like a third lot, or you should just have it in one of the lots. And then if the town were to grant you that as a private street, then you can accept that.
And that is the purpose of the drawing on the site plans, to show that, because that's the end effectable.
Yes, just for the record, that area is a right-of-way. And also for the record, and I know this was in the prior hearing, but I have a recommendation to do the same thing tonight. Or in a subsequent meeting, if the application is approved, there is a requirement for this right-of-way that there be a maintenance agreement, and that one of the lots, one of the property owners from one of the lots, actually maintain this right-of-way, including all the infrastructure in it.
And would that be of record, and would it be in a deed?
Yes.
And it would be in the deed of which lot owner?
There's going to be a reference to it on the final subdivision map, and then there's to the maintenance agreement, and then there will be a maintenance agreement itself, and they will be recorded simultaneously. That is the game plan.
And they are entitled to do, this is basically, they could do a subdivision deed. They could perfect this by subdivision, so couldn't they put it in the deeds?
This is a major subdivision. It's going to be perfected by plat.
And it's going to provide certain conditions on how they maintain it? Is that going to be a written agreement?
Yes.
Okay, and that's going to be listed here. Can you speak?
So in addition to the final plat, there will be a maintenance agreement for the road that the board's professionals will review, ultimately approve, and it will be recorded simultaneously with the final plat, so that we know that someone's going to maintain this road after it's built.
And that approval is going to have set forth the detailed conditions before the public, which will be before the public. So this is a two-lot subdivision, and there was no notice of a private road.
In addition to those conditions, the board should be aware that the applicant has agreed to Title 39 motor vehicle enforcement on this should it remain a private road.
Are there any other cross-examination of this witness?
Karen, let's go 1202 Fairview Circle. Let's go run. You testified that 12 local jobs would be created in accordance with the land management criteria.
What I testified to was that in the course of construction, over 100 construction jobs would be created and approximately a dozen permanent jobs.
I believe you referred to them as local. Am I not correct in that, sir?
I refer to them as local, yes, ma'am.
Are you aware that that is not in accordance with previous testimony we've heard from the plant manager?
I'm not aware of that, no.
Would you assert that your opinion that they are local jobs supersedes that of the plant manager?
I did not hear the plant manager say that they were not local jobs. I heard him say that jobs would be created, and he testified as to the various types of jobs that would be created. I didn't hear him say that they would not be local jobs, but I'm putting in my testimony that they will be local jobs.
Then which one of you is correct? Because he testified that he was not under obligation to hire locally, he would hire based on qualifications.
That's what he said, yes. That he would be based upon qualifications, but he would be hiring locally.
I don't believe he said that.
Why don't we put him back on?
My plan would be to hire local. It'd be better to hire local. I don't have any employees here. Every job is going to be created new for this project. We don't operate asphalt plants in New Jersey, so we're going to hire people out here. As long as I can find the qualifications I need to operate this facility, I will hire locally.
So then, my understanding, I just want to be clear on this, is that you would prefer to hire locally, but the community is not guaranteed that these jobs will be retained locally, so that it is not guaranteed benefit to our community. Am I correct?
prefer to hire locally, yes.
But then I'm correct in that you are not guaranteeing that you will.
I'm guaranteeing that the qualifications meet what we require. We will hire locally.
All right, well then, am I incorrect in stating that this is not a guaranteed benefit to our local community?
You're not correct.
Okay, fine. My next question. You also mentioned an increase in taxable rateables. When the applicant has not yet determined what the cost to our emergency services in this town will be, how do we know that there is an increase at all? Or would those costs mitigate each other? Testimony was provided that no application to the fire department has been made yet. Okay.
So the answer to the first question concerning tax rates, the applicant, based upon the size and the cost of the plant that's being proposed here, will generate over $100,000 in tax rateables. Whether or not that is a community benefit, I believe there is, particularly since there is no residential component to this. And the residential component to any property tax entails Board of Education taxes, which typically make up well over half of the taxes that are assessed on each property. And in terms of community impact, there has been a community impact statement, and that has found that there is a positive fiscal balance to the township.
About how much?
That has not been quantified.
Okay, so this is largely a supposition.
I think it's rather substantial, particularly with the Board of Education costs in mind.
Would the potential costs incurred to emergency services be included in that criteria?
In the overall cost, yes.
But we don't know what any of those costs or projections are.
They would be typical for any other industrial use that's allowed in the zone.
Which is, what is typical?
A manufacturing facility, the cement facility, the plastic facility across the street, the trucking terminal, all of which are allowed in the zone, so they are typical to the zone.
Well, this applicant has asked the community and the board that represents this community to accept what they themselves have called acceptable risk. So in my mind, acceptable risk becomes acceptable when there are mitigating benefits. So I would like to see expressed some substantial mitigating benefits to mitigate the risk. And I don't think that's too much to ask. And can you give me something more here to even out this equation?
Well, from this side of the equation would be the public benefit of the increased rateables and the area jobs.
The 12 jobs, okay, I'm really getting excited about that. And now the 100 construction jobs, where was this number conjured up from?
That is what it takes roughly to build a plant of this size.
Okay, and so these construction crews would come from where?
Again, they're looking for local labor.
And you know that how?
From testimony from the plant manager.
He never mentioned any 100 construction jobs. That was not part of this testimony.
He testified that approximately over 100 construction jobs would be created as part of this application.
No, he did not.
He did not. I'm being corrected. He told me that as part of my preparation for this testimony.
So you guys are making this up as you go along? Is that
Accusations, the charges, or they want later on.
Curse of being tall. I'm Danielle Joyce at 1207 Burroughs Drive in Greenwich Township. Yes, that's right. Greenwich Township. Although you previously mentioned conformance to the Lopatcong master plan, can you provide evidence supporting that the implementation of the proposed asphalt plan will coincide with the smart growth concept defined by the New Jersey Office of Smart Growth as well-planned, well-managed growth, preserving open space, farmland, and environmental resources?
Yes.
If so, how?
This site and this area are part of the PA2 zone as defined by the New Jersey State Development and Redevelopment Plan. The PA2 zone is a developed area which calls for more development. In addition to that, this area has been proposed as a center under Highlands designation, which means that this is an appropriate location for allowed and permitted uses such as this.
Can you provide facts supporting that this project supports the Warren County Strategic Plan, which recommends the advancements of the principles of smart growth in county and municipal plans and supports the following smart growth principles that should be considered by municipalities when updating their comprehensive plans, regulations, and programs? Mixed land uses, compact clustered community design, range of housing prices and types, walkable neighborhoods, distinctive, attractive design, use of existing infrastructure, infill and redevelopment of existing centers and vacant buildings, redevelopment of brownfields, transportation choices, open space, farmland and scenic resources, and historic preservation, predictable, fair, and cost-effective development decisions, community and stakeholder collaboration in development, decision-making, and interconnectivity of roadways, pedestrian ways, and neighborhoods.
Thank you very much. And where is this from?
It's actually cited from the Warren County Strategic Plan.
The Warren County Strategic Plan, of course, is something that is cross-examined with the New Jersey State Development and Redevelopment Plan, as was adopted in 2001 and is currently under reconsideration. That Warren County Strategic Plan accepts what the New Jersey State Development and Redevelopment Plan states, and that this area is part of the PA2 planned development area. And specifically as regards to the strategic plan that the lady is referring to, there are a number of items that refer to this plan, to the proposed plan in front of you. Of course, none of the residential items do, but let's run down the line. Distinctive, attractive design. In this particular case, we're seeing architecturals of an office building and a barn that are rather significantly, I think, more aesthetically pleasing than a typical office development. In terms of use of existing infrastructure, this is an industrial area. It is zoned industrial. It is surrounded by industrial uses. There is infrastructure in place to support the industrial uses in this particular neighborhood. Therefore, putting it here uses the existing infrastructure. In terms of infill, this is a development in the interior of the block. This is currently not used for industrial purposes, as is called for under the township land use ordinance, and therefore by using this as infill development, it meets the master plan and the development ordinance. In terms of transportation choices, you've heard testimony previously that this applicant is going to be using primarily Route 22 to access Interstate 78. That is an appropriate use of transportation in this particular area, as well as the applicant's determination and agreement to stay off of local roads. And it goes on to community and stakeholder collaboration and development, which is what's happening here before this planning board, as well as decision making. Thank you.
However, would you agree that within eyesight of the proposed site, we have a lot of other residential communities in very close proximity? We are trying to obtain walkable neighborhoods. We are trying to obtain distinctive, attractive design. We are trying to redevelop a few of the areas that may not be as aesthetically pleasing. And we are trying to have safer corridors and roadways. So in essence, would you agree that this project, as proposed, defies these objectives of the Warren County Strategic Plan?
I believe that the goals that you've cited are certainly appropriate in zoned residential areas which call for interconnectivity, which call for biking, which call for walking, which offer access to various community facilities. This area is zoned for manufacturing. It is industrial in nature. It is one that fits the use that the township is zoned for.
Would you agree that the,
You've exceeded 5 minutes for your cross.
sorry, I'm sorry, I don't,
And these questions are getting to the point where you're making a statement as opposed to asking a specific question.
okay, can I proceed with the next question, please?
No, I mean, your time is up.
Marla Endick, 10 Byron Drive, Lopatcong, New Jersey. So you did state during your testimony, correct, that this would bring in tax rables, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the amount that you stated was, again, was that $100,000?
Over $100,000.
Because I do believe there's been, I don't know if it was prior testimony, but we had heard at one point it was $70,000 to $75,000. Do you know anything about that? It's now $100,000?
Do you know who said that?
I don't.
I don't know.
All right, let's just go with 100,000, that's cool. Okay, so we're talking about tax rables, that's money coming into our town, that's really good. Let's talk about things that might eat away at that tax rate a little bit. Let me ask you, in your opinion, the wear and tear on the roads surrounding this area, who would pay to repair those roads, other than the private road that we just established?
The community would.
The community would. And would that eat away at that tax rateable?
Certainly it would. Just
Okay.
as,
So
just as any other
Okay.
use that is allowed in the zone is using
Right.
roads that surround this area,
Sure.
which we have heard testimony have been improved to industrial ratings in order to accommodate the industrial traffic that occurs on Strikers and on Route 519 and on Route 22.
Okay, so if we didn't have an asphalt plant, if this isn't approved, and the roads were just the way they were, do you think we'd be incurring as much expense in the form of repairing the roads?
If this were not here,
If that were not there,
if this
correct?
were not here, the applicant's trucks would not be on the road.
Correct.
However, if somebody else came in with,
Not if somebody else came in, I'm just talking about this. Mhm.
Why don't you answer the question?
Okay, sure. Sorry about that.
if somebody else came in with this lot and proposed something that was conforming to the ordinance, met all the subdivision and site plan standards, the board would be very hard pressed to turn it down, so therefore another use that is conforming could go here as on any other lot in this zone. And if they are conforming, such as the truck transfer station,
Right.
which could have a lot more trucks on a lot more regular basis than what has been testified to here. So if you don't do this, could there be less trucks? Yes. Could there be more trucks? Yes. You really don't know until you see what all the uses are going to be on the properties in this zone.
Could you understand why residents might be concerned, because we are talking about this proposed plan, not what could happen, what might happen, who might move in, that there are going to be a lot of trucks wearing and tearing, ripping up our roads, and we're going to be funding the repairs for that. Could you appreciate that?
I appreciate that there would be concern about the additional trucks.
Okay.
And I think that when you take a look, the testimony has been, I believe, 100 trucks with 15 trips in and out.
I believe it was 50. It was, we went over this discrepancy. There were a couple different definitions by Mr. Mitzak and the traffic expert. We did establish for sure it is truck trips would be 100 to 300 truck trips on a daily basis. But let's move on
But
because
I believe that the average was 100 trips with 50 trucks in and out. And when you take a look at the average annual daily traffic
I'd like to move on
Route
because I know.
519,
These questions.
No, they're very relevant.
They've been asked and answered.
Okay, so let's move on because we haven't talked about our schools at all.
1 minute left.
Great, school.
I'd like to answer the previous question.
Then I don't want this, no one's on time because I didn't ask for this answer. I want to talk about the schools. We haven't talked about the schools this entire time.
The lady
Sir.
asked a question about truck traffic on surrounding areas.
School
So-
taxes, you just testified that school taxes are a huge part of the dollars. I think you were even trying to assert that we actually pay more more out. The school's a bigger percentage of the tax. We should be more about school taxes than what this company's going to do. Sir, are you aware that our schools receive state aid based on the number of students enrolled in our school? Do you understand that there are certain parents who have kids that have certain health conditions that cannot do acceptable risk when they leave our school? Our tax dollars go with them, state aid goes with them. Where will they make up that money? From us.
You want to make a further statement on the truck?
No.
Travis?
My name is Martin Swim, 4 Byron Drive, Lopat. The regional master plan from the Highlands Council covers this area?
Yes.
It applies to this area, that's correct?
Yes.
One of the goals given in the overall master plan is to ensure development is compatible with the existing community character. Is it your position that this does?
This is a proposed industrial use in an industrial area, in an area that's been zoned industrial. I can't think of a better place for an industrial use.
You also specified that the development, the finished development would be, I think your exact words were out of sight, and then you corrected and said out of the line of sight. Have you reviewed the plans and noticed the 85-foot tall silos on the property?
I have.
And you're testifying that those are out of sight?
They are in an interior lot. They are at an elevation that is somewhat lower than Stryker. So I have no doubt you will be able to see the tops of those silos from Stryker if you stand there and take a look at them. If you're driving by, will you see them peripherally? Yes.
And you also just gave your expert opinion, I believe, on the aesthetics of this site. You said it would improve the aesthetics.
I was discussing a desirable visual environment, which is one of the goals of the municipal land use law. And the applicant, rather than putting in a cookie-cutter industrial building, is putting in 2 architecturally designed office and storage buildings that I think are better looking than a standard industrial building.
And your educational background qualifies you for aesthetics in what way?
As a planner, particularly on the township side, it is generally the planner's job to review any applications from an aesthetic point of view and work on behalf of the township to improve the aesthetics of the community.
That's essentially the same thing I said, and then I said it was your job, but I was asking for qualifications.
That is my job, and that is part of my training as a planner.
Thank you.
Louis Carpagona, 1119 Fifth Avenue, Alton, New Jersey. Sir, you mentioned the aesthetics, and is it true that there is line of sight of the silos to residential neighborhoods in Lopatcong?
More than likely.
Is it possible that a line of sight to those residential neighborhoods would make it harder for those people to sell their houses?
My understanding is that the nearest residentially zoned homes are somewhere in the 1,400 to 1,500 foot distance from this particular site. And I also understand from taking a look at the area that between some of the residences and this site, there are already existing industrial silos as well as farm silos.
Are people able to see over 1,500 feet when it's line of sight to a silo?
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening, Ron Turkello, 17 Windsor Lane, Lopat. Good evening, Mr. O'Brien. Tourtellot. earlier it's up here, I was asking the engineer about visual nature of these items, and as a planner, I'd like to ask you some of those questions. You testified to goals of the MLU, desirable visual. One question would be these 85-foot silos. Is there a color that's going to be, they're going to be painted to mitigate the impact that they're going to have visually? Is there a certain color they should be?
I'm not sure they are allowed in height in the zone. Let me check. I am told that it is not determined at the present time.
Okay, and earlier I asked if there was a balloon test done, and Mr. Menden said you weren't going to do one. Would you think as a planner that would be helpful for the community and the planning board to visualize what this impact would be? When you put a crane in here and put balloons on it, you can see it from the various residential areas, and the planning board could benefit from seeing that, so we know that the landscape plan and the potential visual impact of this would be mitigated by that landscape plan. Would it be helpful to do that test in your planning assessment of this whole project? Do you think 85 feet, you could see it from various areas and see how it would impact?
This is an allowed height in the zone. The governing body has already decided that a structure can be this high here. Generally, when a planning or a zoning board, sorry, let me back up, when a zoning board of adjustment is looking at a use that is not allowed in a zone, and height is an issue, then under those circumstances, typically a board will request a balloon test to show how high a structure may be, and it's typically done for wireless telecommunications facilities, known as cell towers. Under many occasions, those are done on behalf of the boards, so the board and the public can get an idea of the height of a tower, because those towers typically are not allowed use, typically are higher than what are allowed as accessory uses. Here in this particular location, this use is allowed in the zone. So therefore, the decision has been made that this is not an unusual structure here. And in fact, it does meet with other structures and is conforming with other structures in the area, such as the electrical tower, such as the other silos that are in the area. But if this board should decide that as part of their planning review, that they wish to have it take a look at photographs or personally see a balloon test, and this board can certainly make that decision.
I just think it would be helpful to see that. As far as the 85-foot high structures, I know the ordinance approved that height. I don't know what went into that decision to allow that height. Maybe it's some new capacity of the silos of what the asphalt cement they would hold. But as far as electrical towers, I believe there was testimony earlier about it being 195 feet. I know earlier transcripts had relayed that it was 186 feet. That type of structure, you can actually see through it, so it's not as impactful. These silos are going to be bigger. I haven't seen any drawings. I wanted to see some drawings or renderings or something, and there was none offered. I wanted to see if you reviewed anything like that to see what these would look like on the plan. I've seen site plans and aerial views, but no renderings. The architect, Mr. Zagoda, had presented the buildings that you talk about, which look very nice, like as you said. But those are not the operational equipment, the silos, or anything like that. Those are the outbuildings in the control house. I wanted to see what visually these silos will impact the area, the rural nature of the community. I know you have a great ROM zone here, and there's lots of industries that can go here that I think would be better suited. For instance, the 85-foot tall tower, is there anything else in the area that's that high, other than maybe the cell tower or the electric tower? Would that not be the highest structure in Lopatcong?
I don't know that.
Okay, because I can't think of, I lived here for 18 years, and I can't think of any structure higher than those high tension wire towers, or possibly the cell tower that's on the lot across the road there. I don't think that's even 85 feet. Maybe Bruce would know what the exact height is of that cell tower. But again, 85 feet of 3 silos, I think is going to have a detrimental impact on the visual nature. And I just wanted to see in order for this board to approve that, wouldn't it be helpful to the board to see that visual balloon test? Don't you think that would be an aesthetic evaluation that you guys would like to see to help make your decision in this approval? So you don't think it's worthy? I mean, I took some photographs of, it took me like an hour or so just to drive around the area and take
You have a
photos.
specific question?
Yes, if you think as a planner that it would be helpful to do this balloon test to see how this will impact the area, as a professional planner, your expert opinion.
You've already asked and it's been answered.
And I'm sorry, can you answer it again? I didn't recall what you said. You said that if the board would so desire, I think, maybe was your answer?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Was the gentleman who's pointing some type of a wavy device at us really just not do that anymore?
Lee Rizicki, 56 Puddingstone Way, Lopatcong. Did you state earlier about the master plan, it's under review?
No, ma'am.
Is there, what document are you utilizing to draw your conclusions?
The master plan was re-examined in 2005, and I referred to that document.
What governmental body decides on the vision of the master plan?
The planning board.
So, a town council or no higher up authority has input into that vision?
Anybody who appears before a master plan hearing, which is held by the planning board, has input into that process. A subsequent process is the adoption of zoning ordinances which support the master plan as adopted by the planning board, and those ordinances are adopted by the governing body of the municipality.
So basically, your testimony, is it correct that your testimony is just to verify that the application meets the zoning ordinances, or not to the ordinances, but that it meets to the qualifications of the master plan?
Yes, my testimony is that there is no substantial detriment to the zone plan or the zoning ordinance.
Thank you.
All right, at this point, we'll move on. Sorry, he's already been dismissed, please. He's already been dismissed. I've already asked. You want to let him answer? Yes. Please, go ahead.
My name is Greg Colge, 208 Curtis Court, Greenwich Township. I hear a lot said about the different plans, and I guess it seems that this asphalt plan seems to fit nicely in with all of the parameters and requirements of these plans. Is that my understanding and what the belief is?
The application is for conforming use, which means that it's allowed in this zone.
I guess the one thing that I see missing out of everything said, traffic and ratables and all these things are important. Is there any parameter or requirement for what the people want? And is there any weight given to that at all?
You can ask the question. I'm trying to get the sound down so you can get you on the record.
The reason that this application has appeared before this board for 4 evenings is to allow for public questions, scrutiny, and input.
Okay, so I don't know if it goes to this gentleman here or up here. Is, like, what part of weight, if we were to quantify this a bit, what kind of weight is given to the desire of the people in the area? And I mean, you know, low-pad people who are great, and even in Stewartsville, I'm concerned about what might be coming across in the air and other things. Is there any weight, is there going to be some weight given from the desire of the people?
I will explain if the meeting gets to the point where we can do it, what the burden is as far as the applicant is concerned, and what the applicant has to approved. And I will let the board know what that burden is on them, what they have to make the decision based upon.
So I was just wondering, like, if it was 90% from the plans, is that 10% from the people, or is it 1% from the people, or is it 51% from the people? You know, I'm not trying to be a hard guy.
We listen to
just
everything. We listen to everything people say. And we make our decisions based upon the law.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess representing the people too. I hope that's law, or is that just a... Well, thank you.
Mr. Mayor? Does that conclude your presentation for the evening?
That does, Mr. Chairman. We have no further witnesses.
Okay. Paul, do you have a...
Yeah, I have some questions for Mr. Metzak, and it really relates to some of the questioning from the public last night. It's really an effort to see if we can have some further plan revisions or maybe incorporate some additional conditions in the approval. I guess the first thing, and this came from last night's meeting, there was some discussions about the lighting and what would happen if you were not operating 24 hours a day on a particular day or during the week. And I guess my question to you is, if 189 Strikers Road Associates is not operating 24 hours a day, are you willing to turn the lights off, or in the alternative, only operate with security lighting?
Yeah, I would rather, turn the lights off and operate with the security lighting, yes.
And are you willing to have your engineer make revisions to the plans to clearly indicate that?
Yes.
Okay. Second thing, there is a portion of the perimeter of your paved area on the lot that will have the asphalt plant that is not curved. It's pretty much along the easterly perimeter. In the interest of trying to contain material and better improve the drainage, I would like to see that area curved. So I wanted to know if you as a representative of 189 would be willing to make a plan revision to show that area being curved.
Yes, we will.
There was a comment last night, actually not a comment, there was a question regarding the height of the curb, and it focused on whether it was a 6-inch or 8-inch curb. I actually had a chance, I'm glad that question was asked last night, and I actually had a chance to ponder that, and I actually think having an 8-inch high curb would be a better thing. Again, it could be better for drainage and also better from a containment perspective. You as a representative applicant, are you willing to have a plan change that would show 8-inch curves on your site?
Just to clarify, Paul, do you want, is that around?
Not on the road, just on the asphalt plant site.
Yes, it's okay.
Thank you. There were some concerns during the course of the hearing about idling, and I know there's some state regulations with that in that regard. But I think it might be helpful if we had some signage on site to advise individuals coming in with trucks of that particular requirement. Are you willing to post some signs on your property and also within this private right-of-way, noting the fact that they're not to idle?
Yes, sir.
With respect to the private right-of-way, I know the road is 34 feet wide. It can support parking. But I don't think it's appropriate for motorists to be parking there. I don't want to see any equipment being stored on the street. I don't think that's going to look good visually. Will you, I guess, accept the condition that there'll be no on-street parking on the private road, and there'll be no equipment or material storage or anything of the like within that private right-of-way?
Yes, we will.
I had a question that obviously there's been a lot of concern about the handling of aggregate in the northerly portion of the site, and I was wondering, as part of your operation to try to keep materials from becoming airborne, Is it your intention to incorporate into your plan some sort of street sweeping device?
Yes, we would bring the street sweeping device in as needed onto the site, yes.
And when was that discussed? Yeah.
Killing your people. Right. Wait till one of you get cancer. Then you're going to look in the mirror and say, I never should have passed it. God forbid.
We'll have your chance to express your opinions in a few moments. Right now, you're out of order.
Let me just, on that issue, would you be willing, as part of your application for the air permit for the crusher, to include that as a best management practice, providing a sweeper? I'm not going to throw a timeline out here, but providing a sweeper from time to time on your site?
Yes, we will.
Thank you. Last thing, I know there's been a lot of concern about enforcement, and I know we do have some capability in this county with the local health department, and I was thinking that perhaps the local health department might be able to react to an incident, possibly do some checks on this particular site for issues that it has jurisdiction on, noise, things like that. Are you willing to enter into an agreement with the health department that would include providing some escrow monies that would allow the health department to conduct periodic inspections here?
Yes, yes, we will.
That was my question. I just had two follow-ups, one from last night and one from tonight. Last night there was a question on the load restriction on the New County Bridge on Strikers Road. This is not a question, it's just a note. And I just wanted to let the public know and the board know that I did talk to the county engineer's office, and there is no load restriction. That particular bridge was built to the highest standards, the most strict standards right now, and there is no load restriction with respect to that particular bridge. And from tonight's meeting, I just wanted to clarify there was some discussion on the state's role in regulating stormwater, and I just want to state there's actually two areas relevant to this project where I think the state has some involvement with the stormwater. First, with respect to the stormwater management design, if you go back to 2004, the state adopted sweeping changes to the stormwater regulations. And what ended up coming out of that particular sweeping change was the municipal stormwater regulation program, and that created a stormwater regulatory process for all the municipalities in the state of New Jersey. All municipalities after February 2nd, 2004 had to obtain permits, and there were statewide basic requirements in each of those permits. And Lopatcong was subject to that, those particular statewide basic permits. That's a 5-year permit. We're in our second 5-year permit. One of the things that had to be done is we had to adopt a stormwater element of the master plan, and that had to be done by March of 2005. And within a year after that, we had adopted a stormwater ordinance, and it was based on a statewide model that the Department of Environmental Protection prepared. So there is a lot of state input into what we're doing from a design and regulatory perspective on stormwater here in the township, including maintenance. With respect to industrial facilities, there are requirements for certain industrial facilities that they obtain the GIFTs permits. I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Campbell just to discuss that. I know it's been brought up several times in the hearing. Go ahead.
Yeah, the specific facility, there's a stormwater permit designed specifically for asphalt facilities. It was designed based on the department's investigation of the types of runoff that would be of concern. It requires monitoring and it requires control, a runoff control plan. And the applicant will have to satisfy the conditions of that general permit before they're able to operate.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else of our professionals want to make a comment or ask a question? No? At this point, this is the area that you're all alone. We are now on. Yes, ma'am.
Can we come back another day, sir?
No.
11:30 at night.
Sir, it's my prerogative on how long this is gonna go, and we're gonna go until it finishes tonight.
You're really representing the public then.
Jennifer Canary from Price May Shulman and the Arminio on behalf of our clients, which are, in the pending litigation, the Jameses and the Marinellis. Okay, in light of the haste that this application has proceeded, I think with the number, and I can say this, with the number of land use attorneys present, I think they would agree with the number of experience of years combined, it is quite unprecedented to have 4 hearings in a week's time on a single application, especially one that has been deemed incomplete last week, which was last Wednesday, and in which the board by law has 120 days to review because it is an application for variance relief. That being said, we respectfully request that the board carry the application to give us an opportunity to present expert witnesses. And just bear with me for a second. For example, based upon the testimony of the traffic expert, which I know began at 11:20 last night, we are in the process of retaining our traffic expert. We only had less than 24 hours to do so. I just like the opportunity to be able to present the expert testimony, and I'm just asking that of the board.
I think it's extraordinary, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, with a totally conforming application, conforming with the ordinance. We've had, I can't tell you how many hours of testimony and how many hours of cross-examination. What I would say is, counsel knew about this application. Mr. Drill and his clients retained an expert witness. Our expert witnesses have come back. If someone wants to present contrary testimony, you have to hire a planner, you have to hire an engineer. They had time to do it, and they didn't wait. It's more than 24 hours. You don't wait. I can tell you, those of us who are experienced. And counsel, wait, in counsel with a good firm, you don't wait. Wait, just a minute, Mr. Chairman, you don't wait until the applicant's presented its case and say, oh, by the way, now's the time to hire witnesses. You have your witnesses review the application, hopefully, review the plans, review what's been submitted, and they're prepared to testify. You don't wait to the end of the applicant's case to say, hey, now's the time. So I'm not commenting on when the public is to be heard, but I don't believe extensive time should be given for the production of expert witnesses. They should have been here tonight to testify.
Unfortunately, I was not aware of what their expert traffic engineer was going to say at 11:30 last night, based upon that testimony. And please don't interrupt me. I let you speak.
I didn't interrupt you.
Okay. You look like you're going.
I'm not going to.
You were kind of rude before, but I'll ignore it. It's okay. They had an opportunity to present their witnesses. You guys had an opportunity. I just wanted to confirm for the record that the board also had an opportunity to have professionals here. I'm just asking for the opportunity as well. We had 4 hearings in less than a week. I mean, honestly, that is unprecedented. You can't tell me that. I mean, I know I've never had an application that's been done in less than a week before hearings. And I understand it's 4 nights, but it's a week's time. That's all I'm saying.
Not interrupting you. Finished? Oh, and one thing I would say, we have submitted reports, so it's not a big surprise. In fact, the traffic engineer submitted a report, an extensive report on it. Engineers submitted reports, and traditionally you have a planner. And Mr. Bennett had mentioned who the witnesses are going to be, so I don't think it was a big surprise, but it's in the board's discretion. I just wanted to voice my objection.
Thank you. I just want to make a response to that. That report was from September. I did not know him coming up last night at 11:20 what he was going to say. I did not know he was going to just be saying what he said. I can't anticipate, I'm not a mind reader of what that testimony was going to be. I want a chance to rebut his testimony from last night. I understand the report. I read the report. I know I've had that report since last week. I know that.
And you had an opportunity to hire your expert.
I did not have an opportunity. I
You
did not have an
had an opportunity from last week to even put on your case. The other attorneys involved here.
Me sitting here silently was not.
The board has done it. I think you got ample opportunity to do it, and you're way past.
Okay, all right, so I just want to confirm, for the record, the applicant had a chance.
There's no
The board has a chance to
record
put on
of
their
so.
experts. Okay, and you're not permitting us to bring on experts.
I'm not extending the hearing this evening, no.
So that's a yes or no, you're not permitting us to bring back experts.
You could have, you had an opportunity to bring the
So
expert.
it's enough.
It's past time now.
Okay.
One other thing, Mr. Chairman, I believe council's firm has filed 3 lawsuits already concerning the rezoning, the amendments, the first application. So this application didn't come as any surprise, and we did have a memo on whether or not we should proceed. So council's firm, let me just finish. You're right. Council's firm didn't come in at the last minute. This has been a process. I don't know. I'm not going to ask when the original complaint was filed, but there have been at least 3 complaints filed, an extensive memo, so they're not coming in at the last minute. They knew that this is a process and should have been prepared.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome. All right.
Here to share. I just think it's insane at 11:30 at night on a Thursday night to say to this public who is, you told them that if they had testimony, their own public knowledge, their own personal knowledge and experience, that that was to be kept and held until the public comment portion. To expect all of these people to have the opportunity to be able to speak tonight and to have the
We will now open the public comment portion of this. Anyone who wants to come down, they will have 3 minutes to speak. Please sit back in the microphone.
My name is Karen Isco, 1202 Fairview Circle, Hancock. I just feel it necessary to implore this board.
Are you going to swear them in?
Yes,
I'm sorry. Raise your right hand. Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
I just have to implore the board, if you saw what we were seeing, we're all in the same room here, we saw the applicant ask this community to take on what they have qualified as acceptable risk without demonstrating any mitigating benefits to my satisfaction. These paltry few jobs, these unknown tax rateable amounts, the unknown mitigating costs incurred, these are not benefits. So I don't see where any risk is mitigated by the benefits. And just on that level alone, how can this not be considered preposterous?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do,
Okay.
but as far as I understood, I was making a comment and not a testimony.
Here's the reason. If you start making factual statements, they're entitled to cross-examine, so that's for everyone.
Oh, all right, fair
Thank
enough. All right, I'm Bruce Johnson. I am at 930 Mountain View Road, and that is at Asbury, New Jersey. Is the post office. That's Bethlehem Township. Concerning the traffic study, we've had numerous testimony given. We've indicated in the testimony that 80% of the average traffic generated from the plant was proceeding out to Interstate 78, and we've even heard that on a peak
situation, the plant would likely be fully occupied, trying to supply a large project. And we also even have on page 1 of the traffic study that most of the truck traffic will be heading out toward Interstate 78. Well, that's fine and dandy and consistent, except for when you get to page 7 of the traffic study, and there you get the actual breakdown of where the trucks have been assigned in this traffic study. Interestingly enough, there's only 47%, less than half, of the trucks are going toward Interstate 78 in the AM rush hour. There's only two things that are analyzed. It's the AM and the PM rush hour. The morning, 47%, the PM, 40%. What it means is the majority of the trucks are going in the opposite direction as to what the testimony that we've received so far, and this is the end of the testimony we received is saying most of the trucks are supposed to go in the other direction. You've got a traffic study in front of you now, which is giving most of the trucks off in the wrong direction. So it's not consistent. And a traffic study really is only two things. A traffic study is getting the correct background vehicles into the study and then the correct additional generated by the plant. So that's one error in the plant of all things. This is an application for the plant, and what you've got is a traffic study in front of you which isn't reflecting what the testimony that's been given up till now says is going to happen to those trucks. That's an important thing. And the railroad crossing, which is the one up by Route 57, the 57 inch Stripers Road, we really haven't got in front of us here a good explanation, and at least it hasn't been, it's nowhere in the traffic study, as to what happens when a train is occupying that intersection. If it is that the trucks from the plant are going to not proceed, are going to wait for that to clear, where is it that they're going to wait? You just can't stop in an intersection. You've got to put the trucks someplace. You can't block Route 57. If you go over onto the shoulder there, that's a hatched area, and I don't believe that's even allowed legally, but that has not been really addressed in the traffic study. Right now, with the trucks going on right now on say on the back, excuse me.